Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Factory Podcast. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Factory Podcast. I'm your host, Perez, joined by my co-host, my brother, Mr. Phoenix. Say what's up to the camera.
What's up, y'all?
This is called the Burn Factory for a reason. I was literally caught on fire. 50% chance to survive, but through that started this podcast because I believe every single person out there on this planet goes through a burn moment somewhere in their life.
You heard Priest say a burn moment. So a burn moment is a super hard time in your life that you just have to fight and overcome to ultimately get you where you are today. And me and Priest believe that every single person on this earth goes through little burn moments every single day that truly make them who they are. But what an amazing guest we have today, Priest. Our guest was an all-American wrestler. He was the Tai Chi Palace Flyweight champion. He was on the 13th season of Dana White's Contender Series, and he is now the number 7 ranked flyweight in the world. And he also has his own acai shop called Acai Republic.
So please give a welcome to Alex Perez.
Hey, what up, guys? Thank you guys for having me, man.
Of course.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you
to
for
the
coming
Burn
on.
Factory.
Thank you for coming on.
So it's true, you got 8 siblings.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that.
It was interesting, that's for sure. You know, there's 4 of us, so it's 4 older, then there's a break, and then the 5 younger. So it was crazy time growing up. Never got my own room until I got into college.
Wow,
You know, I always had to share a room.
crazy.
You know, 4-bedroom house, so always had to share with my two brothers. You know, obviously the girls had their own room. The oldest girl got her own room because she was the oldest, but it was definitely interesting. Never a dull moment, that's for sure.
Are they all fighters or?
So
just you?
most of them wrestled. So all of them, I say, besides one of them tried wrestling. One of them actually went to school in Oregon, I believe. She got a scholarship to wrestle. Didn't fulfill the 4 years. She was like, school's not for me kind of thing. But we all wrestled. We all played sports growing up, did something. My mom was always big on, doing an activity, whether it's a sport or just, joining a club or something. Just that's our way to get to college, So my mom was really big on that, really pushed us to do something extra.
Very competitive family, I could see.
Yeah, so I'm the only one in my family that didn't place at the state tournament. And when you walk into my wrestling room at Leamore High, you walk in and it says wrestle like a champion today. You walk in and then there's boards, right? You got league champs, but back when we were in our heyday, you're supposed to win a league title. That's a given. You're supposed to place at divisionals. Okay, that's a given. Masters, okay, a little bit harder, but the state tournament in California is only one state champ. So out of 500-600 schools, you only got one state champ. So if you place in the top 8, you're, out of 700 kids, you're the best 8 kids in the state. And I was the only one that didn't place. So every time I go into that room, or anytime there's a family argument about who's the better wrestler, who's the better athlete, that always comes up. That's the number one hit.
Just eats at you.
Yeah, there's no low blows. And I mean, they just bring, let me pull up this picture. Look at the wall and stuff. You're like, man, come on.
Wait, so that's interesting. So there's no divisions?
No.
There's no D1, D2?
No, so
really?
we have sections is north, south, central, Central Coast, things like that. But there's only one state champion in wrestling. So one state champ. So if you win the state title in California, you're the best guy in California. There's about 700 high schools that have wrestling. So you're the guy. That's why California, when we get recruited in college, if you place, you're going to go, you can go D1 just because you're in the top 8. You're going to go D1 because it's the hardest tournament to place at state-wise, because every other state has A1, A2, A3, things like that. But California doesn't. It's only one.
Wow, that's
So
crazy.
Do they just take the top 64 and they go to the tournament, or how does it kind of work?
So you have to go through the league tournament. You qualify for your division, and now you go divisionals to masters. You get top. Before, when I was wrestling, it was top 6, and then you wrestle at the state tournament. Before it was a 48-man bracket. Now it's a 64-man bracket. So you had to be the best of the best. The northern section is kind of like if you have a northern section guy, you kind of okay, laugh, okay, that's the easiest section. You're oh, thank God. But it's random. They literally separate the top 8 guys in the state. You get ranked every week. They separate them, and then it's random. So I can be wrestling number 1 guy in the state right off the back, or you never really know. So it's definitely interesting, but it's definitely fun to wrestle in California.
What section would you say the hardest was?
A central section is the best section, even to this day. We have Buchanan right now. My buddy Nick Contreras, he actually coaches there. I think they've won 6 or 7 state titles in a row.
Oh, wow.
Probably ranked in the probably top 10 in the country. They're probably top 5. You got Clovis. They're ranked in the top 10. You got Bakersfield. They've always been in the top 15. Like my section is, if you're in the Central Valley and you wrestle there, you make it to the state tournament. Like you're wrestling the best guys in the state. It would be funny because you have guys that wrestle league, divisionals, master, state, all in the same 2 guys in the finals every week. Because 2 best guys in the state tournament or in the country are wrestling each other. So it'll be like this guy's like 7-0 against this guy going to the state tournament. You know, and it'd be like 2-1, 3-2, like 1-point matches. So it's definitely a very competitive section.
During the state like championship runs, how many times did you fight in a day?
So
Or wrestle in a day?
so in high school you only could wrestle up to like I believe it was 4 times a day. So they were split it up. So you have buys and stuff like that. You only could wrestle 4, and then the next day you have another 3 to 4, depending on where you're at in the tournament. So it just all depends. In high school and CIF, so in section like high school and stuff, is that. But like if you wrestle like freestyle and Greco, I remember wrestling freestyle and Greco and at Frosthoff State tournament, like going like 12-2 and not even placing at a tournament because so many guys are showing up. It's just intense. So California wrestling is definitely intense.
Definitely where it's at. So, Alex, on this podcast, we use the acronym BURN. So each letter is kind of a different time in your life. And you touched on having 8 siblings grow up. So B stands for beginning. So kind of take us back to your childhood. What was that like?
Childhood was great. You know what I mean? My mom, there's 9 of us all together. My stepdad, he was working in the fields and stuff like that. So I definitely got a lot of like their values in me because they worked hard. You know what I mean? Like, I had a lot more than other kids had, and there's 9 of us. I mean, you're talking about I remember getting iPod back in the day. I remember getting nice shoes, nice clothes. Like we're getting a lot. So my mom and my stepdad really sacrificed a lot to get us there. So like it was fun. I had a great time. You know, obviously there's challenges here and there, just like everything. I hated school, that's for sure. I wasn't the biggest school guy, but my mom was really big on school, and you get a C in class, man, she'll whip us so bad. I mean, my mom's a lot nicer now. She's kind of older to my sisters, but my mom was really, really, really strict. And it's crazy because my neighbors are some of my best friends. I still talk to them to this day. And they actually told me the other day, like, hey, man, like, I wish my parents were a little bit harder like your mom because, man, look at all you guys. Like, all of us are very successful. My brother's a cop in Long Beach. My little brother's a diesel mechanic. My brother, both own their houses. I'm just buying my house. My sister's graduated college, has degrees. My little sister's all very successful in life, and my friends are like, man, I wish my mom and dad were a little bit stricter like your parents, So I got really, really, at first I hated it, like my mom was on me all day, every day. School, you came home, I mean, we're up at 6 a.m. It was like military. You're up 5, 6 a.m, we're cleaning the house. Hey, you're getting ready, you're walking to school, we're walking to school, you're doing your schoolwork, you're resting, came home, homework's done. And then on top of wrestling, we had to, I come from a really, really like prestige wrestling culture. Like at Lemoore, we're probably top 10 in the state, top 5 in the state for like at that point like 10, 12 years in a row. So we're hardcore wrestlers. So we had to do homework, still get our extra runs in, still get our extra lifts, extra practices in. So my mom was very honest, and her biggest thing was, I don't care if you're a varsity, I don't care if you place or not. It was mostly about just getting us to school. She's like, you guys are going to be the first ones to graduate from school. And my older brother set a really good example. He graduated from high school, graduated from college, got his master's, you know what I mean? So my childhood was really, really crazy just because siblings. We always fought. We wrestled.
Yeah, we know about that.
So it was crazy. At one point in time, my older brother, me and my little brother were all on the same wrestling team, like all varsity. And my mom was just like, no, you guys can't practice together because we'll go at it because I hate losing. You know what I mean? And our room was stacked with killers at that time. It was just an intense room, and my mom like, you guys can't wrestle each other because we would go at it. I remember our coach. I mean, you can't do this nowadays, but our coach would be like, hey, no one's leaving practice until you guys are freaking. Someone's on the mat crying, and we're there trying to club each other, make each other cry. Lock the doors to the restroom. Like, nah, we're running for 2.5 hours. Like, we're gonna change this culture around. You guys are practicing too soft now. I'm like, man. So like,
it's hardcore.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, my childhood was fun. I got into some trouble, but here and there. But my mom definitely straightened me out afterwards. I was growing up, I was a little bit smaller, so I always had like a chip on my shoulder. I wasn't always the best athlete either, so I always had to work harder. And I always tell people to this day, I'm not the best athlete, that's for sure. Even to this day, I'm not the best athlete, but I'll work anybody. I'm practicing 2-3 times a day, trying to get everything right. I'm doing my extra runs, you know. I'm doing everything I need to do to be better. And I know if I go into a fight or back then in a wrestling match, it wasn't because the lack of effort or just because you're just better than me at that point in time. And I'm okay with that. I was never okay with not giving it my all. And man, like I said, my mom and my stepdad definitely showed me that because for working in the fields, you know, I remember watching him work. I went out to work with him a couple of times. Like, nah, I don't know how you do this day in and day out. He's like, well, someone got to feed you guys, right? He's like, well, that's true. So he's out there climbing on trees, apples, peaches, you know, picking grapes. We're doing garlic at some point in time. You know, we're doing things like that. And just seeing that kind of, man, brought it to me like I did not want, this is not the life I want for myself, you know. So it kind of made me work a lot harder and be a lot more disciplined, that's for sure.
Your parents are definitely a good burn moment for you. 1000%.
Oh yeah, man. My mom still gives me some burn moments.
But growing up in that household, it just gives you that blue collar work ethic to just never stop what you're doing and always give it your all 1000% every single rep.
Yeah, like my mom was a big inspiration. You know what I mean? Like just doing what she did for us. You know, like she's a homeowner, stuff like that. First one, I like in the family, like bought her house and stuff like that. So she did set an example, and I always like listen to Inky Johnson. You know, it's always about like he always talks about like saying the example for the next generation up, and she set the tempo. She sent the tempo for us. Like, hey, like I didn't like she went to school and stuff, but she didn't, you know, obviously go to get her bachelor's, master's, stuff like that. And she's like, hey, this is what I did. Like, you guys gotta be better than me. And my older brother set the tempo real high because graduated high school, went to San Francisco State, graduated there, left Orange County, became a cop, went back to school, got his master's, you know what I mean? And I'm like, dang, like for me, like I didn't finish school, but I'm successful in the UFC and fighting and obviously starting my own business. My little brother went to school, he got like 2 degrees and he's like, I'm gonna be a diesel mechanic, you know? So he's a diesel mechanic, has his house, things like that. So we set the bar high for each other and, you know, all the stuff we make fun of each other for, but we always pretty much put each other in check and make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing. And my big thing about my family, they're not scared to check me or we're not scared to check each other if we're messing up.
Yeah, that's good to have. But back to your older brother setting the bar high, did you feel any pressure kind of growing up to kind of live up to what he was doing?
Kind of, because like I said, my brother is like our brother is one of those guys that like he set the bar high, and I'm competitive. I don't care what it is. It can be checkers, man. I'm trying to beat you, tic-tac-toe. I'm trying to win, so I'm trying to set the tempo high. So I'm trying to always catch up to him, you know, like this guy, I mean, he lives in Huntington Beach, has a nice house, has a nice car, you know, he travels the world. He does all that. So like eventually I want to get to that point where I can start doing all that more frequently, you know. So he's definitely set the tempo high. It's definitely a little bit of pressure, you know what I mean, because I'm the second oldest. So a little bit of pressure, but you know, that's what it's here about.
Yeah.
What age did you get into mixed martial arts from wrestling?
So I started wrestling when I was at about 5th grade, 6th grade. Didn't really take it serious. When they told me wrestling, I was like, man, where's the ladder? Where's the chair? I'm gonna throw something.
WWE.
You know, I was like, hey, where's the chairs at, man? And I started about like 5th, 6th grade, and I was like a natural at it. It was like, I think we practiced for like 2 weeks, went for my first tournament. I took second, and I wish now I would have had the work ethic I had now than when I had back then. When I first started, it was just so simple for me. It's like kind of doing it. So I started then, and then junior high, high school, and then so I didn't place at the state tournament. I didn't get no college offers. You know, I got a couple ones, but I was like, man, I didn't want to go there. So I was like, I want to try fighting. What's the worst that happens? You know what I mean? I want to try that as a hobby. So when I was 18, I threw my first punch hitting pads, and it was cool. I mean, it was cool, and I was like, I'm gonna try this a little bit more. And I made a deal with he's now my manager, but my buddy Jeremy Luchow. He's like, hey, I'll help you get fights, but you have to go to school. So I was like, all right. So I ended up going to junior college, West Hills, Lemoore, and I started going to school, and he started having me train with the team in the town. It's called Team Ochoa. Started training with them, and kind of took off from there. I honestly just wanted to try it as a hobby because I don't want to be like 40 years old, be like, man, I could beat these little guys, you know, I can beat these guys up, you know. This ain't nothing. So I tried it as a hobby, and then, man, 12 years later, I'm still doing it.
Yeah. What was kind of that time that it just like clicked? You're like, you know what? I can be a world champion one day.
For me, it wasn't really about being a world champ. It was being the first guy from my town to get to the UFC because so around my area we have Fresno, we had Cole Escovedo, we had LeVar Johnson, and we had other guys that be Bellator and Strike Force back in the day. And then you had like Hanford had Chad Mendes. Then you had Visalia, you had Cody Gibson. He's on the Ultimate Fighter right now. And then you had he was in the UFC, now he's back on the Ultimate Fighter. And then you have Marion, she was in the UFC, and you had Bellator fighters. Then you had Joe Soto, but no one from my town was in the UFC yet. And I wanted to be that example that kind of show guys from my town, because I see even to this day when I go home is that people don't leave. I always tell people, like, Lemoore is not the world, man. Like, leave, go explore. Like, go to college. Some wrestlers are scared to go. Some like kids get college offers like in Kansas or something, right? Like, oh, I don't want to go. I'm like, dude, go. Worst case scenario, you come home, right? There's a junior college here, but go explore the world. Lemoore isn't it. And I wanted to kind of be the example to show people like, hey, just from being in a small town doesn't mean you can't do things. And I've been blessed that I've been able to travel the world for free, watch people fight, do what I'm doing, you know, doing things like this. Like where back in the day when I first started this was, you know, this is all like things that you work for. And I just want to be that guy that to kind of show the younger generation, like, you can do it. You know what I mean? I'm still the only person that has come out of there to be in the UFC, but I hope other people take the risk. You know what I mean? I bet on myself, and you know, I gambled on myself. Not too many people are willing to do that, and it's worked out for me.
Think about all the people you did influence too in Lemoore right now. Like, oh, I'm watching Alex Perez growing up. I want to become a UFC fighter one day too, and they're trying to make it one day.
Yeah, you know, like I said, I always go back to my wrestling room. I always go in there and wrestle with those guys, stuff like that. And I always tell them, you know, like, use this as like a pedestal to get you to the next level. Like, school's not for everybody. Like, people have guys tell me, well, I don't like school, I don't like this. I'm like, dude, like, I just want to wrestle, be this. I'm like, dude, use wrestling to get your education, to go to bigger things. Like, I wish I can go back and finish college. That's the one thing anytime I talk to anybody, is like, I wish I can go back and finish school, just because it's always a backup plan. You know what I mean? Like, thank God my plan A has worked. You know what I mean? But if it didn't work out, what would I be doing? You know, like, I don't know what I would be doing, honestly. So I'm just grateful and happy that it's worked out. But I always tell kids all the time, like, you guys need to go to school. You guys need to finish it. You guys need to set the tempo for your family, you know, for your little brothers and sisters. It might not be your older brother. You might be the second, third oldest going to school, but you can still show the younger or the older guys in your family, like, hey, it's not too late to go back to school. So I always encourage going to school.
Yeah, it's not too late for you still. You could go back and do some online.
I'm ready. I'm like a couple classes away, but I'm like, I'm ready a bit. I got my businesses going.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Too busy.
Speaking of business, Acai Republic.
Yeah, got that going this in October. It'll be a year.
Oh,
so
wow.
got
Congrats.
that. Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, you know, my goal is by the time I'm 40 to retire. Who knows if that really happens or not, but that's the goal I set for myself. I want to own a couple of these within the next 2 to 3 years, and you know, go from there. I always tell people, I don't gotta be a millionaire, man. I just gotta be able to pay my bills, eat some Korean barbecue here and there, and I'm happy.
Barbecue.
Yeah, man. I'm a foodie.
You are a foodie?
Oh man, there's a reason why, you know, I'm this big and I fight at 125. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All you can eat's my thing.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
For sure, Korean barbecue. Like, I go there everywhere.
Really?
Korean barbecue, yeah.
That's number one?
Number one, yeah. I mean, I like sushi, pizza, everything, but Korean barbecue is my thing.
No
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A up there?
Chick-fil-A, man, it's not bad.
That's his
Hurt my
go-to.
feelings.
He loves that.
That'd be too expensive, man. I eat too much.
Especially going there every single day. But Alex, what a crazy beginning to your life. It's time to go to you and Burn. Unfortunate. I actually want to share a little unfortunate experience myself. So it's the last week of school. I was in 6th grade. He was already out for summer, and I, just like you, I hated school. And I was just like, man, how come Mom could just let me be done with school already? But anyways, go to science class. Teacher said she's going to be doing a science experiment that involves fire, sand, rubbing alcohol. And she's like, we need to go outside to do this. So we all get outside. That doesn't make sense. We get outside, go sit down in a semicircle, you know, like a horse-shaped U circle, and she was trying to perform this like fire black snake. It's this like charcoal snake that's supposed to form. Wasn't working, and you never dump rubbing alcohol into a flame because it can burst.
Yep.
So she grabs the rubbing alcohol, dumps it into the flame, and completely burst in my face. And I was immediately rushed to ICU and spent a week there and had 7 surgeries and a 50% chance to survive. And then but day 3 in the hospital, that's where I found my burn moment. Is whenever I'm a competitive golfer, and I had my parents and my brother go give me my putter, and I would put 3 balls into a glass jar over and over and over again because I was feeling so down on myself, like, oh my gosh, I literally might lose my life because with burns, the swelling is so bad, and just use my burn moments for good in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. And it was hard for me because like that's my brother, and you having so many siblings, like there's a different, deeper level of love. And I'll never forget, I was actually golfing on the golf course, and I got the call, and my dad's like, yeah, your brother got burned and we're going to the hospital. And I was like, oh, maybe it's like a hot glue gun, or maybe they're messing around with that. But he was like, no, like it's bad. Like they might fight for life him. And I'll never forget, I had my ball sitting right there, and I turned for the woods, and I swung as hard as I could. And ironically, it was the best shot of the entire day. But it was just so hard to see that. And you just like question, you're like, why? Like, this is my little brother. He's like 12 years old. And as bad as it is like, there's worse people out there. Like, why couldn't it happen to them? And so for you, like, were there any unfortunate kind of burn moments that you've gone through in your life?
Yeah, man. So, like, just growing up in general. So, I think when I was younger, it kind of happened for me, not even fighting. So within a 3-year span, I ended up losing my great-grandma, where, like, I was with her all the time. Like, I almost flunked school because I was with her so much. She was in California. I was living in Sparks. And then I say maybe about a year later, one of my little brothers, he ended up passing away. And I was the first one to actually wake, like, because my mom would leave to work, the nanny would come, and probably like 20 minutes later come in, and she was screaming. She's like, hey, like, go check on your brother. I remember running to the room, and then my brother was was like stone cold. And I was in 5th grade. And I just remember just seeing her, like, what the heck is going on? Like, I'm trying to call 911. The phone's not answering. I'm running to my neighbor at the time. They live across the street. We're friends with them. And I remember knocking on the door, like, hey, 911's not answering. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, we're running crazy. And then within another year, my great aunt ended up passing away. And that's the people I live with, my great aunt, my great grandma. I live with them. So it was kind of crazy just going through that. And I remember just being super mad all the time. Like, dang, like, why is this happening to them? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, when I was young, I didn't understand my grandma. She's already older, you know what I mean? But still my great grandma. And like I said, I lived with her forever. So it was like kind of one of those things. And I was like, man, just getting past that was kind of the roughest part. And that's part of the time where I started getting in trouble the most. Like, I ended up moving from Sparks, Nevada to Hanford, California. Started moving there and going to the school Lincoln. And then kind of just started going off the rails, you know what I mean? I was kind of mad. And everybody's excuse was like, we're going through everything. Just seeing that at a young age, going through all that stuff. And I remember just one day I was like, man, like, what am I doing? Like, I've seen, we're living on, it's called like the south side, kind of like the bad area and stuff like that. And I've seen all my friends. I'm walking around with these guys. Like, I'm just like smoking cigarettes with these guys. I'm like in 5th grade, smoking cigarettes with guys, smoking weed and stuff like that. And one day I was like, dude, what am I doing with my life? Like, there's way more to life than this. I've seen these guys, joining gangs and things like that. And I was like, man, so I kind of used that to kind of change myself little by little. It took a lot longer than what I thought, you know what I mean? Going from there, obviously, like, kid, I didn't know. I didn't really talk to anybody about it, or didn't have anybody to talk to about it, you know what I mean? We're all kind of going through the same thing. And even to this day, I can say that me and my family don't really talk about what happened through those years. Kind of just like we kind of like past that stuff. So it was like, it took a while for me to start changing everything, but just being the first one there, like seeing like my brother like passing away, like he was a couple months old, probably like 8-9 months old, maybe a little bit older. It's kind of hard to tell. I was so young that I really didn't know how, like, couldn't tell how old he was, but just seeing that kind of definitely changed me. I was like, man, I used that later on to kind of like change my direction of where I'm going. Like, obviously I wasn't the best at school and hated school, but I kind of used it, seeing where I was going, like smoking, doing all these things, like, trying to be a little gangbanger, things like that, going kind of changed my life. Got myself really involved in wrestling and stuff like that. So that's probably the biggest one that I had growing up. And then just through MMA, it was kind of just a couple times where I wanted to quit. And I remember me and my son's moms taking these walks around the block, like me just like crying, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like this isn't working for me. Like, I'm tired of living off $500-600, people complain about the fighter pay now, but when I first started, I was fighting for $300-400. Like, to show up, drive across California, you're gonna fight for $300. Okay, cool, man. I'm happy for that. After a while, you get tired of doing that. There's times where I had to pick whether to put gas in my car to get to training the next couple of days, or buy some food, or things like that, and sleeping on people's floors, doing all that stuff. That's probably one of the ones that really kind of helped me elevate it. And then ended up fighting for the Tachi title. I won. I was like 10-2, and then I ended up losing. To Adam Antolin. He ended up becoming on the Ultimate Fighter. He was on the Ultimate Fighter with Brandon Moreno, that one where they had all the champions. Ended up losing again to this guy named Jared Papazian. And I was like, man, I'm done. Like, I've been doing this. I was 10-2, had a title. UFC didn't want me. I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. And one of my coaches, Coach Colin Oyama, I was like, hey, man, like, I'm done, blah, blah. He's like, nah, just pack all your stuff, come down here. And I was like, I'm just going to work for a little bit, get some money. In my head, I'm tired. Like, I'm thinking, like, I'm done, I'm going to be tired. And he was just like, nah, just get down here. Like, what I mean? I was like, nah, I don't want you to work. Just pack all your stuff and get down here. And I kind of literally thought about it. So in casinos, you fight either on a Wednesday night or Thursday night, because those are the deadest nights at a casino, so they want to bring people in to make some money. So this is on a Thursday night. I just lost. I'm texting him. I was like, hey, I'm done, I'll just work and then I'll head up there. He's like, no. He like literally told me, he's like, I expect to see you here Monday. Literally for 3 days, I was like thinking, like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna like literally just pack all my stuff? I just lost. I don't know if I'm ever gonna make it to the UFC. I don't know if I have the shot anymore. And literally, I'm just sitting there in the hotel room like thinking. And I was talking to my son's mom. I was like, what do we do? Like, what do I do? And she's like, you know what? I support you. Whatever you do, if you want to go. It's like, I think you should. And you know what I mean? Like, Lemore's always gonna be here. Like, worst case scenario, it doesn't work, just come back. And I was like, all right, that makes sense. And I kind of just thought about it. And then literally Monday morning came in, I packed all my stuff and just took off. And, I ended up staying out there at Team Oyama for the last, I think I was there for 8-9 years, and made it to UFC, fought for a world title under Coach Colin. And, we're still good friends. I still train out there with them. And, but that was the moment where I really realized, like, hey, I'm going to put everything into this. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen to me? Like, I fell, try to make my dream come true. And, worst case scenario, I go back to Lemore and work wherever I work at, or, try to make it happen. And I'm glad I, like, listened to my gut. My son's mom, Christina, I'm glad I listened to her. And then, and I'm glad they supported me through this decision, because it's probably some of the toughest times living at a gym for a while, And it's definitely changed me and gave me gratitude to where I'm at and how much we make and all this stuff. Like, a lot of people don't see, like, oh, well, fighter pay, this and that, or just in general, like fighter houses. I didn't have none of that when I was first coming up. We got it later on, but I'm grateful for the experience that I got, because it definitely molded me to what the person I am today. Living at a gym definitely sucked.
Yeah, I was gonna ask him. Think about, like, if you didn't even call Coach Omania, where you wouldn't be in the UFC.
Yeah, I literally was gonna. So, like, where I trained at Lemore, it was mostly in a garage. I was 7-2 as a pro, and my partners were guys that, like, had jobs and stuff, and I was the only one really, like, trying to make it a career. And we had a couple other guys that were serious about it. But at one point in time, I remember during the winter, like, we were, like, our gym was in a garage, and then we finally got a boxing gym, what's called Palafox Boxing Gym. So we let us put like a slab of mat down. We're training in there, and there's no heater in there, so you're cold. And in Central Valley, it gets really cold. So I'm training with my head coach, and he's 200 pounds plus, and it's just me and him. Me and him were sparring, we're rolling, we're like, And finally, I talked to him about, like, going down to Team Oyama, and I was going down there, and I was like, hey, like, I didn't want to leave, but he's like, man, like, you got a shot here, let's go down there and do it. And I respected him for allowing me to go, because I was like, he's seen something in me, and sometimes people want to hold you back, like, no, like, I want you for myself. But he's like, no, go out there, do your thing. He's like, we'll always be here to help you. And even to this day, like, I text him every time I'm in town. We get workouts in, or we just text each other, just see how we're doing. But like, I'm definitely grateful for everything he taught me, because so the gym, when we trained at his garage, was at his house. So he would come. I didn't have a car, and he lived about 10, 15 minutes away. So he would come pick me up at my house, take me to his house to train, and then take me back to my house. So he was doing a lot of that for me. And like I said, without him, getting me started in the sport of MMA and doing what he did for me. I don't know where I would be because, like I said, it takes a lot for someone to pick you up from their house. I mean, he just walks into the garage. He's at the gym. So he literally would pick me up, take me back, bring me back and forth and stuff, and never charged me, never said anything about doing that. So even now when I fought for the title and I fought some fights, I bring him out. My first fight in the UFC, I brought him out. When I fought for the UFC title, I brought him out just because he's a big part of me, and best way to show gratitude, to him, because I'm the first guy that he coached that made to UFC. So I was happy. I was honored that I was the first guy, and I was just happy that he was there with me.
That's crazy that he saw something in you that you didn't even see in yourself at the start.
Yeah, like it's crazy when some coaches look at you and they're like, oh man, we see something, and when you don't see something in yourself, like it was definitely, like I said, for him to approve of me to do that, I was like, oh man, that's pretty cool, because I don't know how too many people are gonna go from their house and pick you up and take you back and forth, without any questions. He never hesitated. He never said, oh no, I can't do it today or not. This always made sure I was at practice.
It definitely gave you that extra boost of confidence too, like going into the cage knowing that he's got your back 100%.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like in fighting, I mean, you're going in there by yourself, but you need a team. It's like that's why I like wrestling and fighting, because it's an individual sport, but you still need a team behind you. I mean, yeah, I'm the one in there making all the decisions where I'm fighting and wrestling and stuff like that. But without the team helping you get ready, there is no fight. There is no you. You know what I mean? Like, they help mold the person or the fighter you're gonna be. So like I said, I was definitely grateful for him being there.
Yeah, and that's so much trust in your coach too, because like they literally have your career like in their hands. And so was it hard to kind of find that trust with him at the beginning, or from the start it was just full on?
Obviously, like I'm pretty I'm pretty quiet and stuff like that, but me and him click pretty well. And he's a quiet guy too. He doesn't really talk. He's not really a big talker. So he was very, very, very quiet too. So I kind of like took a little bit, but it wasn't like it wasn't because of like trust issues, just because we're both quiet people. So it was cool though. Once we clicked, I mean, like I said, my main training partner was his nephew Stefan. So yeah, it was funny because when we first started, he had already been training for years, and he used to beat me up so bad. And then his nephew would go home, and he lived in Nevada. So he would leave, and every time we come back, we'd like measure up, like, okay, like you've gotten better and better and better. So it was cool to see, you know what I mean? Putting everything together, like little by little, seeing my progress. Because his nephew used to beat me up all the time. Like, man, there was not a day I would go without getting freaking beat up. I'm like, dude, whether it's jiu-jitsu, the only thing I had on him was the wrestling part. But jiu-jitsu wise, kickboxing, boxing, he was throwing me around left and right. So it was cool to see kind of like me trusting him, kind of get me to that level, and then finally surpassing him. Stefan ended up just kind of going his own way, kind of doing his own thing, stop fighting. So it was kind of cool to see, though, like the progress going up.
It's crazy to see how one single person can change your whole life for you.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to whenever you did fight on the Contender Series, what was the pressure like?
So crazy story. I got the call for the Contender Series. And they're like, hey, we got a Contender Series spot. My manager, Jason Howes, calls me, and I'm like, I was like, 125s. I'm like, nah. I said, nah. I was like,
really?
No. And then he's like, I was like, it was like 3 weeks, I was getting ready to fight at 135s like a week after that. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. And then he's like, okay. And then he hangs up, and my coach Colin calls me. He's like, hey, you going to do this? And I'm like literally eating a candy bar. I have a candy bar in my mouth. I'm like, oh, well, do I finish this candy bar or not? You know what I mean? Like, screw it. So, yeah, at first I said no.
Really?
And then he's like, no, we're going to make this weight. Don't worry about it. And then we're like, okay, screw it. Yeah, we're going to do it. And I'm fighting at 135, so I'm probably like 155 at the time. I'm like, ooh, it's going to be a cut. And end up linking up with Perfecting Athletes. They're still my nutritionists and dietitians for now. And they helped me make the weight and stuff. And it was crazy because the Contender Series back then wasn't like how it is now, like where they're signing a lot of people. It was like, no, you gotta be on it. And I remember telling one of my friends, like, look, either I'm getting knocked out or he's getting knocked out. I mean, that's the only way back then. Is like, that's the only way you're gonna do it. And I kind of took it as my last chance because obviously I had the title at Tachi. I lost, and then I get an Ultimate Fighter. Then they had a show, Dana White looking for a fighter in San Diego. For CFFC, I believe, and he was there for my fight, and I won, but I just had a bad like camp and stuff, and just horrible fight. right? So I took this as my last chance. So I was like, either I'm getting knocked out or he's getting knocked out. And went up there and ended up knocking him out and got the contract. So I was like, oh man, thank God, because geez, I gave myself a timeline. I gave myself until I was 27. It happened when I was 26. And I gave myself a timeline just because I don't want to be 31, 30, chasing this dream, you know what I mean, and not get there. It was just like one of those things like, hey, I've tried everything I could. I moved to Orange County. I got my shot in front of Dana White. I've won titles. I've won all these fights in a row. If it doesn't happen now, like, I'm okay with it because I did everything I could. Like, I don't, when I was in college, I used to party a lot. But when I was fighting, I stopped partying, didn't smoke, nothing. Like, I'm at the gym 24/7. I'm putting in hours. I'm cleaning the mats, doing things like that. And, I was okay with that. I was like, I did everything I could on my end to make it. And if it didn't happen, then it wasn't part of the plan. And thank God it worked out because I made it. And then, it has been a run.
Making sacrifices.
Yeah,
that's what you have to do if you really care about something. You want to be the best. But when he finally called your name, what was that kind of like?
I was excited, man, because just all the hard work and everything. Just my corner was Coach Colin Oyama, was Casey Hallstad, and Ron Turner. But my coach from back home, Mito Morales, I got him a ticket to be there. You know what I mean? And it was just exciting to see. And obviously, my manager Jason, he's been managing me since I was 18 years old. So at that time, I was already 24, 25, like 25 years old. So I was like, okay. So it was cool to see, he was probably one of the ones that like, man, if we don't get this kid in the UFC, I'm going to go freaking jump off a bridge or something. Because he knows, I used to live with Jason, like I lived with him when he was in San Diego. When he lived in Lake Elsinore, I lived with him. I would live at the gym Monday through Friday. He would pick me up Friday. I'd go to his house, do my laundry, come back Monday morning for 6 a.m. jiu-jitsu, and I'll stay there for the whole week. So I lived with him in every house he's had, I've lived with him. Even the one here in Vegas, I've stayed with him, when he first got it. So he's been a big part of my journey too. And, I know it was like a big relief off his shoulders, my shoulders, everybody's shoulders. Like, man, we did it. You know what I mean? Coach Colin, he's definitely not the most emotional guy, but, probably the first time I seen him show some emotion in a long time, like I said, like he was a big part of the reason why I got there. Cause with his opportunity, like he let me stay at his gym. Then we got a fighter house where I got to run it, like I would have that's like the first time I ever had my own room, and I got to run the fighter house. And that's where we had Cheeto Vera living with us, Humberto Bannight, Diego, all these guys living with us. And it was awesome. Like all the sacrifices he did for everybody. And it was just cool to see that like I'm benefiting from this guy just taking a lucky shot basically, because in the sport, you're not guaranteed to be in the UFC. So it was cool. I was just super happy to get that monkey off my back because I always tell people I've never won the big one. When it came to the state tournament, I was one match away from placing. In junior college, I was in the finals my sophomore year and I ended up losing that. When I fought for the title, when I defended my title, I lost that. So I was getting that monkey off my back. I've never been able to win the big one, the big fight, the big match, and to finally get that off my back and make it to the next level, it was awesome.
Next is the UFC title. That's the last one to get off your back.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. Incoming.
Incoming.
But what was it like fighting during COVID? Because I remember we had Jason House on our podcast earlier in March, I believe, and he was talking about how managing all these fighters during COVID was one of the craziest things ever. But I can't even imagine as a fighter.
It was crazy because obviously in California we got super shut down. Like there was nothing. So I just I remember they offered me a fight and I was like, screw it, I'm down. And I remember texting Coach Colin. I was like, hey, I need to use the gym. I got a fight booked. And like we had training together in the morning, right? Like it was only the fight team, but I was like, hey, I need to wrestle. I need to do this. I was like, look, if we get busted, I'll pay the fine. Not knowing, like, speaking, I didn't know what the fine was, Yeah. I was like, hoping it was like $1,000 bucks,
Yeah, it's probably outrageous.
Yeah, I'm hoping it was like $1,000. I didn't know, but I was like, okay. He's like, all right, man, whatever. So I had my own wrestling practice. I was running. We were hitting pads outside sometimes, It was crazy. And it definitely was an interesting time because it was good because I got to focus on myself, but it was crazy because I wasn't able to access everything I needed. Like strength and conditioning was just like we would work with Corey Beasley. I mean, we worked with him for like 7-8 years, and obviously everybody was freaked out about COVID. So like he was like, "Yeah, I'll send you the workout." So I'm doing workouts, and I'm like, "Man, I don't even have half the stuff I need, but we're gonna make it work." So it was definitely a very interesting time. And then I remember coming out to Vegas, and Jason actually got an Airbnb, staying with him for a couple weeks, going out here. Like it was definitely interesting, and I was happy a lot of guys got the opportunity. Like one of my good friends, Christian Aguilera, got a call. You know, he was gonna be on the Contender Series, but then they're like, screw it, we'll just, like, he was gonna fight that day. Like came from Orange County, drove in, was getting ready to do like fight 2 days later, and he's like, you know what, we'll just put him in the UFC. His fight will be added to the UFC. So he got an opportunity. A lot of guys that, who knows, maybe wouldn't have got the opportunity, like, you know, right off the back. So that was cool to see. A lot of my friends got in, and it was cool to see. Like, a lot of good things happened, even though it was a bad time for everybody. A lot of good things happened.
Then you got the call to fight for the world title.
Yeah.
And then that was in the Apex. So what was that kind of like? Was it eerie with no crowd? And
Yeah, it definitely sucked not having a crowd around me, because all my family came out to Vegas and stuff like that. So when I got the call, I was like, Ricky, I was getting ready to fight somebody else, and Ricky Simone was staying with me, and my son's mom, Christina, she was pregnant at the time, and I remember getting a call, looking at my phone, I'm getting a FaceTime like from Jason, the house, like 1 a.m. Like, dude, like, he knows I'm in bed by 11. Like, why? I decline. Calls me again. I'm like, bro, what do you want? Like, Christina's gonna be pissed. You're waking her up. You know what I mean? She, like, the baby's all kicking her on the side and stuff. She's like, oh, like, waking up and like you're barely sleeping, you know? And I'm like, what do you want? He's like, just calling to tell you that you're fighting for a world title. I'm like, wait, what? And he told me. I was like, oh man. And then I go back to bed, and then she's like, who is that? I was like, oh, it was Jason. What do you say? He's like, oh, I'm fighting for a world title. And she, like, literally stands up like, what'd you say? I was like, oh yeah, I'm fighting for a world title. Then I'm up all night. I was like, does that mean should I go run right now, or should I like just try to go to bed and wake up in the morning?
Questions.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, but it was definitely a good experience. You know, obviously the fight didn't go my way, and it's just a part of it. But had a good time. Probably one of the better counts I've had. You know, I did like I said, like, it sucks that I lost, but like, I'm disappointed, but I'm not like, oh man, you know, I can go back and look at that camp. I did all my running, my diet was on point, everything was on point. You know what I mean? It just wasn't my night. I always tell people all the time, like, you have to be. It's whoever's. You can have the best camp, worst camp. It's whoever's on that night, and if you're both on, it just who's that much better. You know what I mean? And obviously it was his night. He was better than me, and I feel 9 out of 10 times I can beat him. But I feel like every athlete that does a sport can do says that. You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I just took it on the chin and kind of just keep going from there. And, you know, it was a cool experience. It was cool to see my, like, you know, kid from Lemoore, seeing your face on a poster, on bulletin boards, on commercials. You know, I had people hitting me up like, oh, man, that's cool to see that you're actually doing something. You know, like, people from my hometown, like, oh, it's cool. You know, like, you're just not in Lemoore like everybody else. So it was definitely a cool experience. You know, I mean, my family, because my dad lives in Mexico, and I have 2 brothers out there. And they're, like, all pumped about it and stuff like that. So it was definitely a good experience. I had a good time. Like I said, I loved the experience. I loved the opportunity to fight for a title, because people don't understand, like, only a small percentage make it to UFC. Only a smaller percentage gets ranked, and only a smaller percentage fights for a UFC title. You know, and to say that I did that, you know, is like, whether I fight for a title or not again, I could say I did it once, and I mean, that's always a great opportunity.
I mean, you've seen guys in the UFC for 8 years, and they haven't even made the top 15 rankings or anything, and they're just constantly putting hours and hours into the gym. And
yeah, it just, like I said, the sport, it's a great sport, teaches you a lot of discipline and everything, but it's very unforgiving, you know, like it's a love-hate relationship, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
Can't even imagine. This
portion of the Burn Factory podcast is sponsored by Phoenix Salon Suites. Please visit Phoenix Salon Suites at PHENIX Salons SALON Suites SUITES.com to find one near you. Everyone has unfortunate times in their life, and I really feel like that time period has really helped you today and has motivated you to continue to chase after your dreams. But R stands for ridiculous. It's kind of lighter, kind of funny. I mean, all these fights that you've been in, crazy crowds. Was there kind of a ridiculous burn moment that happened to you? Maybe a fan asked you a random question, or someone yelled something at you. Was there some kind of funny?
So anytime I'm fighting, doesn't matter where. I fought, you know, at a lot of arenas. I can always hear my mom. Always. If you go back and watch some of the fights, I think when I was fought in North Carolina, I was like on the main card, probably like almost towards the end, and you can literally hear my mom. like squeeze. Like I can hear. I don't know why, man. I can maybe because she yelled at me a lot when I was little. But man, I can definitely hear her voice clear. Like it's just I don't care where I'm fighting. I can always hear her yelling, and it definitely always makes me laugh when I go back and watch the fights and stuff. Or sometimes like, was that your mom? That like, oh yeah, probably. Like I can hear that. And then so my last fight I ended up losing to Pantoja, right? And it was my son's first time going to a fight. And I remember walking out. Obviously, you're kind of just focused walking in. You know, after I lose, you kind of walk back. And I remember looking up, and Christina's up there, and she's like, "Hey." I'm like, I hear her voice. I'm like, what? And I see my son, and my son's like looking at me all crazy, and he's like, oh, like trying to jump off the thing. And I'm like, and I was like, hey, just pass the baby down, like go down there. And she couldn't because she had to go all the way across and down. So my son ended up like crowd surfing all the way down to me. Like all these strangers like grabbing the baby. Just, all right, yeah, we're passing. Like I'm like, man, that's probably thinking about. It's probably not the smartest idea. You know, I don't know how drunk they were, but because I was on the pay-per-view part. You know, I was like, well, if they drop them, but they're like pass them down. So that was funny. Just seeing them crowding. Later that night, I ended up walking them back to the hotel. And they go in the elevator, and she's like, "Hey," she said, like, lady goes, "Hey, was that the baby crowd that was crowd surfing?" I was like, "Yeah." So my son ended up crowd surfing. He's like, and he was like one and a half. So that was pretty fun.
He's all famous now.
He's all over social media the next day.
He just like, oh, I was like, dude, that's crazy. Just watching my son go from like stranger. Like, oh man, it's probably not the smartest thing I've done, but hey.
You gotta think about like, what if someone did drop him or something?
Like
all the consequences.
That's a lot of trust in some strangers that you don't know.
I was like, I just got hit in the head, so I was like, hey, I would have blamed it on his mom. Like, hey, I just got punched in the face, man. Like, you're supposed to be the person responsible for him, you know. But it was cool. Everybody like walking down. It was cool. Like just seeing him, he was just like looking at me like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, just wanting to get to you.
Yeah, it was cool. You know, I took him to the back and stuff, and we're riding in the car back to the thing, and he was just like, oh, like, but she says that like. When I was walking out and stuff, you know, they put your face on the screen. And he's like, oh, he recognized me and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely that's probably one of the ones that I remember the most.
Yeah. Would you say your son being born was the greatest Burr moment of your life?
Oh, for sure. Because I thought if I wasn't like by the time I was 30, if I didn't have a kid, I was going to have a kid. And then my son, so he's the first grandchild on both sides, her side and my side. So he's super spoiled. Like he runs all over my mom. My mom used to like put down the hammer, you know, on us. Now my son be running around doing whatever he wants. I'm like, man, mom, what the heck? Why aren't you that nice to us? She's like, oh, he's my love. Blah blah blah. I'm like, man, but yeah, it definitely changed me. Like it's just crazy having a little human to watch after. And he's everybody says he's my twin. Like I take him to the gym. He goes out there, runs. He does front rolls. He warms up with the classes. He goes in the cage. We lock him in there. He's punching the corner pads. Definitely,
really?
Yeah, it's definitely fun. I'm like, man, I do not want this. They're like, what do you mean? It's like, I want to be a doctor or something. I don't want to fight. Like,
don't be a fighter.
Please don't be a fighter. But he'll fight. He's gonna wrestle for sure. He'll end up fighting at least 1 or 2 times, you know. But like, I'm trying to. Hopefully, he becomes a golfer or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
you know what
if he does,
if he does, he's got
we'll
2 coaches right here.
Yeah, I always tell people it's kind of hard because no matter what, I'm gonna be coaching him because I'm so good at everything.
Are you good at golf?
No, I'm horrible.
We'll get you right. We'll give you some lessons at Top Golf.
I need some because I'm probably the most unathletic person you ever meet in your life. You watch me do the ladder and stuff, you're like, what the hell? Like this guy's in the UFC. Like, yeah, I'm super unathletic. I just work hard.
That's a good thing about golf. You don't have to be super athletic to play it.
Man, I'm trying to hit the ball and it's like, no. I Happy Gilmore, just try to chop it too. I was like, nah, it ain't working for me.
We need to take him to Top Golf. So we're competitive golfers.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pretty good. We're scratch and stuff. And we actually just came from Wyoming and we played in a tournament. So
all right. Yeah,
we'll give you some lessons. And you can go take your buddies out to the course and start taking some money.
Take that money from them.
Taking some money.
Yeah, no, I'm down. Like I said, but yeah, my son's definitely going to fight. But I'm hoping he doesn't. I'm hoping he does something else because I'm like, geez, everybody's like, how are you going to be when you coach your son? And I'm like, I really don't want to coach my son in wrestling. You know, that's like, I like to leave that to them. You know what I mean? Like I've wrestled, I've done that. I love coaching. I always tell people all the time, I'm a better coach than I am fighter. I love coaching. I love watching film, like technique and stuff like that. Like I'm literally watching fights all the time. I'm boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, wrestling. I'm watching everything. And like I love coaching, but coaching my son, I don't know.
Do you think coaching would be something you pursue after you're done fighting?
Yeah. I like currently now I work with even though I'm fighting, I've always helped other people. Like I'll hold pads, I break down film. Like, hey, this I feel like for game plan we should kind of do this, and this. What do you think? Coaching is just one of the things I like to do. Like, I like helping other people achieve their goals. You know what I mean? I had help. You know, I like to spread my knowledge and help people get to where they want to be. Because, say, if it wasn't for other people helping me, investing time in me, I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at.
Do you think coaching has helped you as a fighter yourself?
Yeah. So
Just taking a step back.
Yeah, because I started coaching when I was in high school. My manager now, Jeremy Lucha, his son Jace. I've known them since I've known Jeremy since I was 14. His son since he was 4 years old. So I started coaching him, and wrestling because what we would do is they would pay us $10 like an hour. You know, basically the class like an hour, and that would help go towards like our USA wrestling cards, our freestyle tournaments, or state tournaments, so stuff like that. So it kind of helped me because if I wasn't wrestling, I would be out being a little hoodlum, you know, be running around. So I was always trying to wrestle. I probably wrestled folk style and then take a little break, like probably like a couple weeks breaks, and go to freestyle and Greco, wrestle that. I'll probably gain like 50 to 60 matches in the summertime, just trialing wrestling. But I started coaching, and it definitely helped me become a better wrestler because, you know, you're explaining technique and you're like seeing where you're messing up. So you're like, oh, kind of correct it. So it definitely helped me a lot in MMA and in wrestling.
And from like seeing other fighters and like their style, you could probably pick out something that they do good and start to put it into your fighting style as well.
Yeah, you can definitely pick apart things. So like now when I watch fights, it's hard for me to go out and really watch fights because I'm texting Coach Colin. I'm like, hey, what would you do in this situation in between rounds? What would be your adjustment? And like, be like, all right, I would do this. Or like, I was thinking this. I'm like, oh, that's good. Or he's like, I don't know if that would work for this guy. You know, blah blah. So like, I'm always trying to like see what I would do as a coach. You know, because eventually I am gonna coach full time and stuff like that. So it's always good to know because like athletes, you know what I mean, you're always trying to improve, but as a coach, you got to know what to do. Because I remember Carla Esparza, she fought Claudia, and our game plan with Carla's always been like, hey, we're going to force her to shoot, punch so we can take her down. And the takedown wasn't working. And our game plan literally for 8-9 weeks was like, hey, we're going to take this girl down, we're going to take her down. Between the first and second round, he's like, no, fuck that. We're just going to punch her. We're going to just fake the shot, start punching her in the face. You know, and then like literally for him to make a call in a big fight like that was like, oh, okay, like this is why you need to like be on top of your game, because he made the adjustment within, you know, you got a minute. From the 5 minutes, you got a minute to explain to your fighter, and it was just crazy to see like, hey, no, fuck that. We're just going to do this. This is what we're doing right now. This is it. Like, screw that game plan we did for 8 weeks, but we're going to switch it up to this. You know, and I was like, oh, man, to see that like live was kind of like eye-opening. You're like, oh, man, like that's so crazy for him just to switch it up like that.
And sometimes you got to go to the basics in the fights because they can win.
Yeah, like, you know, Coach Colin always gets us basics win fights, man. Like all this fancy stuff. It's funny because you get guys coming to the gym. Well, Conor McGregor does this. Like, well, if you're Conor McGregor, you probably wouldn't be here right now. You're probably making millions. Or like Floyd Mayweather, you know, like Floyd Mayweather's like, hey, man, let you know, you ain't Floyd Mayweather, or else you definitely wouldn't be in this amateur MMA class, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And people would like laugh. He's like, dude, yeah, stick to fundamentals. Some guys are good at what they do. They've mastered it. You know, you get the Floyd, you got like John Jones, you get like, you guys aren't them. Like, basic wins fights, basic stuff, basic jab, basic low kick, basic defense. Like things like that are going to win fights. Not all this fancy spinning stuff. It's like, yeah, it lands 10, 15% of the time, you know, but like basic jabs, basic 1-2 lands, you know, 80% of the time. So like we really do fundamentals, you know.
I mean, even go looking back at the Juliana Pena fight versus Amanda Nunes, just the jabs won the fight.
Jab won the fight.
Yeah, just stay behind that jab. Everybody like, oh, like, look, man, like the fight that Amanda could have probably finished the fight, but I honestly don't think she wanted to. I think she wanted to beat her up more because she really didn't like her. The second one, yeah. Uh-huh. But you look at it as like, oh, she didn't do anything fancy. Turned southpaw, worked behind the jab, 1-2 jab. She knocked her down, got on top, ground and pound, let her back up. You know, it wasn't like she was doing spinning stuff, nothing crazy. You know, it just basic wins.
What do you think would have happened in the third fight?
I think Pena's like, man. I always tell people this. Ronda Rousey was the Royce Gracie of women's MMA. Right, because they're like, women MMA is so far behind just because it started later, but she's the Royce Gracie. Amanda Nunes is the GSP. She's good on the ground. She's good, you know, good on the feet. She's good everywhere. You know, there's gonna come a little bit faster just because MMA training is so more advanced. You know, where like in MMA for guys like Royce Gracie was the guy for so many years, and then you had like the Matt Hughes and Chuck. You know. Like it took a little bit longer, but girls are having so much more success because all the training is available to them. And nowadays, you're putting your kids in. You're not putting them into wrestling. You're not putting them into jiu-jitsu. You put them into MMA where you're doing everything. So I feel like she's the GSP of women's MMA. Like she's for sure the greatest women's fighter of all time. You know, probably be the GOAT forever. But I mean that's how I see her, as the GSP as the women's MMA.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I never thought about that way, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like I mean, Ronda wasn't the best striker. She just took girls down, armbarred her, right? Whereas Gracie, what was he doing? Taking people to the mat, choking them out. You know, GSP was wrestling guys and being able to strike with certain guys, doing all that, and that's what man. She picked what she wanted to do. I want to take this girl down, or I want to stand with her. They're kind of picking what she wanted to do. That's why I say she's a GSP.
Mm-hmm. And like switching game plans too, because in the second fight she came out southpaw. She's never fought southpaw in her entire career, and it prevailed for her for sure.
Yeah, 25 minutes ago, southpaw, you've never done it. It's like that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, especially first time doing it too.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. But going back to you coaching, do you think you'll one day open up your own gym?
I don't know. I've thought about it. Like I've actually had offers like you know, to like, hey man, like we're kind of investing. I'm like, oh man, like. It's hard because I like to grind, and I was always taught like in fighting you're not gonna like. I'd rather fight a guy that's 10-0 than a guy that's like 8-8, because the 10-0 guy is probably never made out of the first round. I'll just tell my guy, hey, work behind the jab. You're gonna survive the first round. See what the guy has second and third round. Like the way I like to fight is like if we end the fight early, great. If not, we're ready for 15, 25 minutes. So I like to grind a lot, and a lot of like I don't know what it is. A lot of guys don't like to wrestle. Like I come from a wrestling background. You got to be able to wrestle. A lot of people don't like to be body to body. Like this is the most uncomfortable part. Like people can do jiu-jitsu, but wrestling is probably the hardest thing you have to do, because body to body you're trying to physically overpower another man. You know what I mean? So you're literally like body to body, and a lot of people don't like that. And that's the way I kind of run my stuff. Like, hey, we're gonna be good on the feet. We're gonna wrestle a lot. We're gonna be good on the ground, but like we're gonna grind. Like, you know, it's not gonna be the stuff like we're just gonna stand up and strike all day. No, like we're gonna grind it out. And a lot of athletes now are starting to lose that. I feel like starting to lose that grind. I mean, you got a lot of them that still have it, but I feel a lot of them more like aren't really grinding as hard as they used to, because I feel like it's too much science behind training. Like when I grew up, man, like growing up through the sport, there wasn't like no one telling you what to do this. Like hey, our strength conditions coach like, hey, do this, pick this up, put this down, you know, kind of thing. Now it's like, oh man, today, you know, you kind of burnt out, like your levels. I'm like, no, man. Sometimes you gotta learn how to work through all that. You gotta, on your worst days when you don't feel like doing it, that's probably the day you gotta go the hardest, because it's gonna get you through a fight. Like there's times where I've been like, man, I do not want to go to the gym today, but probably some of my best workouts because I forced myself to go, got in and started going, you know? So I feel like if I was to open up a gym, I don't know how it would be, because I like to grind people out, man. We're going to win we're not going to spar crazy hard. We're not going to try to knock each other out, but everything else, we're going to grind. We're going to wrestle a lot. We're going to get in each other's faces. I want you to be conditioned for 15 minutes. Like my schedule back home was Monday, Wednesday, we had MMA, striking, training. Monday, Wednesday nights, we wrestled. Tuesday, Thursday mornings, we had jiu-jitsu, strength and conditioning. Then we went live. Tuesdays was sparring. Thursdays was live, but it was like on the ground, on the wall, like certain positions. Friday was our day off. Saturday, we hit a track, hit about 3 miles, like different intervals. Like you're going to Indian run 1 mile, do this. Then we went back to the gym and sparred right after that. And you know what I mean? And Sunday we're off. So that's the kind of thing I would kind of want to keep going with, because it made me successful, and I feel like it can make other people successful.
What does live mean?
Live?
Yeah, like
so like when we go live, so everybody thinks live is going sparring. Like we're gonna sit there and just bomb it out. We're gonna go stand up, go on the ground. But like, man, we would get hit enough. Like we get hit all the time. So for us, like on Tuesdays we would do like 8-9 rounds with like big gloves. Then we'll do little gloves. We're like, hey, just all wrestling. We're gonna wrestle. So it's all 100% goes. Thursdays was a little bit lighter. We really didn't punch each other in the head too much. But I was like, hey, you're going to be on the wall. You're going to wrestle. You're going to be on your back. You're going to be in guard. You're going to be this. Like always different bad positions where you're going to be in a fight where you can't do, you know, where you're not really getting hit. Because ground and pound, no one really ground and pounds too crazy. No one elbows you on the ground. But when you're on your feet, you get hit a lot. Like for me, I feel like if you're sparring twice, like we sparred on Saturdays. But if you're sparring 3 times a week, it's kind of like, man, that's a lot of getting hit in the head. I mean, we would get hit a lot. So, like, so our coach put it like, hey, like, we're just going to do this. Like, yeah, you can punch each other, but you're really not, like, ground and pound in the gym is way different than in a fight, right? Like you're really not hitting each other, like you're hitting each other in the body and stuff, but like really not to the head. So we would go 100% on Thursdays, but I was like, you're gonna wrestle. I'm trying to take you down on the wall. They take you down, they pop back up, take them down like nonstop, just live, going nonstop. Like, I mean, we would start practice at 6:30. We'd be done by like 8:30, sometimes 9, depending.
Oh,
Our coach didn't care.
practice.
Our coach is gonna grind us out, man. Our coach Collins probably said like, I like him because he wrestled in high school, played football, right? He played football in high school and wrestled in high school. Then he went to college. He played football, but he also did like boxing and Muay Thai. So he had a little bit element of everything, and he kind of did a really good job of putting everything together, and kind of uses that wrestling mindset to like grind people out. Coach Collins, if you guys don't know him, he trained Rampage and Tito Ortiz at the same time. So when Rampage was dominating it, Pride, Tito was a UFC champ. You had Rico Rodriguez, Carlos Esparza, Ian McCall, myself, Chito Vera, back in the day before he went to Ruka, and he had Ricky Simone, Louis Smoke, Russell Doan. Like he has a good list of guys that, in MMA, and he's known as a Muay Thai guy. He's some Muay Thai, Romeo Donza. He's cornered Shane, Big Shane. He's cornered like guys that have a really good accolades in all sports. You know what I mean? So his knowledge is crazy, and the way he works people out is just insane.
What do you think about like big gyms nowadays? Like you have like ATT who's massive. Would you rather be kind of in a smaller like circle, so to say?
I think big gyms are good. Small, like they all have their like pros and cons. I think big gyms, you get way more bodies, right? Like sometimes you get all these guys like American Top Team, right? They got all these guys top guys in the world all beating each other up all day, but then you might fight each other. So that is an awkward situation, Little gyms, you might need, like you get more one-on-one attention, but then do you have all the bodies you need? So kind of like mix and match. You might have to do a little bit of both. Bring guys in. Like I know, like I bring Ricky in for a lot of my camps. Ricky Simone, I bring him in a lot for a lot of my camps. Probably one of my best training partners. We push each other in the wrestling, grappling, all that. I train with Chito Vera. I mean, so we kind of like, you got to bring people in. So smaller gyms aren't bad if you have the bodies. If not, you have to find a way to get them there. And then big gyms are good, but then what happens if you guys have to fight each other? Like, I see you every day at the gym, or you could train with each other eventually, So it just kind of hit or miss. I like the smaller gyms.
Yeah,
For sure. At a big gym, I feel like it's good because you have so many different people, and it's good to train with all these different people compared to like a small gym when you're constantly training with like the same guys and you know their tactics.
Exactly. Like you do like figure each other out, But then like like people would think about it like, oh wow, I figured this guy out. Well, that guy's gonna figure you out. Like you got to make adjustments too. Like you got to learn how to make adjustments. Big thing I like for a smaller gym, it's more of a team aspect. I come from a wrestling background, so it's an individual sport, but you still need a team. So I like the team aspect more than the big gyms where like, yeah, you're a team, you might want to work out, but I feel like I haven't been to too many big gyms. But I feel like it's a lot of more clicks than like, we're all friends, we're gonna train together. You know what I mean? Where like at a smaller gym, like we all do the same training. Like at Yamas, we all train together Monday, Wednesday morning, Tuesday, Thursday nights. Like jiu-jitsu, I go to my own jiu-jitsu gym with Coach Gio Santana, and then I do my strength conditioning with Corey Beasley. You know what I mean? But everything, and then Saturdays is team training. So you got 5 team trainings you have to be at. If you want to do the jiu-jitsu classes, stuff like that, you kind of mix and match your own jiu-jitsu, but it's all team aspect, like that's why I like to be a part of a team.
Yeah. All right, Alex, it's time to go to N. N has 2 parts. It's kind of now and next. So what are some burn moments you're going through right now? And what are some burn moments that you see coming up in the future?
Man, I'll say now, just waiting. You know what I mean? Like what's next? It's the big question, always for fighters. I'm coming off a couple of injuries. I broke my orbital, had orbital surgery. I've had like a stress fracture in my back, L5, re-injured my back. So just right now, it's just what's next, the hardest part for a fighter, because I'm training, and then you get hurt. Like, you get hurt, it's crazy because you'll be fine for like 5-6 months. All of a sudden, you get a fight like 2 days into, you're like, oh man, I freaking hurt my knee or hurt my back. And it's like, man, but, just coming off these major injuries, just what's next. It's been a while since I've been in there, so I'm just trying to see what's next and go from there. And then obviously the what's after that is kind of just, for me, it's more of a personal like what's next with my businesses. I want to, I really want to expand my business portfolio. Like I'm buying a house. I want to do, obviously I want to do more of the business side as well. Just set up my future. Like I said, like I don't want to be a millionaire. I just want to be able to pay my bills. So that's what's next, because fighting's going to end eventually. I'm 31. I've been doing this for 12 years. So I got to figure out what's next in that aspect of life. Fighting is fighting, but I got a son I got to take care of now. So I got to figure out what's next in that part of that aspect of life. Just, whether coaching, whether, hey, I'm not going to coach, I'm going to run my businesses full time, kind of things like that. So that's kind of what I'm kind of looking at next.
You just moved to Las Vegas. That's what's next too.
I just moved to Vegas, man. I just moved to Vegas. California was cool and everything, but had to get out of there. I was in Orange County for the last seven, 8 years, around there. Just got crazy expensive. So for one of buying a house out there, I would have bought like a 1-bedroom condo over there in Orange County. So I never grew up. Some of my goals growing up. Obviously being a UFC champ was one, but I always biggest thing I had, like I have a whiteboard at home. I have my yearly goals and my life goals. And one of my life goals was I want the UFC to buy me a house. So, that means obviously I don't want the UFC to pay, write me a check, here's your house, but I want the UFC, I want to be able to make enough money in the UFC to be able to buy my own house and be able to pay it off. So, I've done great with my money and I invested very well. So, that's the next one off my bucket list. Once I pay that house off, that'll probably be a big one. I grew up in a house in Lemoore in the country, and I could have bought a condo back in Orange County, but, man, I have a son. I never grew up saying, hey, man, I can't wait to buy a condo, so I was wanting to buy a house. So that's a big one for me, and I'm super excited. Super nervous, but super excited for sure. It's a big purchase, but, I'm grateful that I'm getting the opportunity to do it.
Starting a new chapter in Vegas.
Yeah, right.
It's back to what you said. You got to take a leap of faith. Like you got out of Lemoore, and now it's time to get out of California and come to Vegas.
Exactly. And I got good people around me, like Jeremy, Jason, Iridium, Jacob, all those guys. Like I've known those guys. This is part of my family. My son calls them uncle. They're around me all the time. They give my son gifts. Like I've known Jeremy since I was 14. I've known Jason since I was 18 years old. I'm 31 now. I've never signed with any other manager. I don't even think I've ever like talked to another manager like about leaving Jason and them. They're the best in the game. They've always had the best interest, and they help me just so much, just in general. Like if I have questions about just life, those guys are scared of like oh yeah, tell me the truth. Funny story, because I was getting ready, like I was talking to Jeremy one time and I was like, dude, like I'm beating all these UFC guys up in the UFC, and I'm like, how come I haven't got the call? He's like, you want me to be honest with you? I was like, man, I'm from the country. I expect you to be blunt. He's like, because you're boring as shit, dude. Start finishing some fights and you get in the UFC. And I was like, damn. All right. That's all I got.
That's harsh.
Yeah, man, I'd rather take the truth being like that than someone like, you know what? You're like, you win like 2-3 more fights or you're on the short list. I'm like, man, how long is this short list? I've been on the short list for the last 6 years. You know what I mean? Like how many people are on there? I like people being straightforward with me because I'm a straightforward person. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you how I feel. You ask me for advice, I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm like, if it's a good idea or a bad idea, if I'm like, how do I feel about it? I'm like, I don't know, but I'll make sure you know exactly. And, that's what I like. Jeremy, Jason, they've always been super blunt with me, and I like it like that. And said Jason and Iridium Sports, they're probably the best in the game. They got Lance, they got Jacob, they got Jeremy, Jason, obviously the main guy, but those guys like family to me.
Sometimes you need the straight up answers.
Yeah, you do. Even though you don't want to hear it, it still gets there.
Yeah, for sure. Where did you meet Jason at?
So I met Jeremy when I was coaching his son in high school, and then I met Jason at Tachi Palace. So my very first fight, I fought in the middle of nowhere. Tachi Palace, a lot of people don't know, but WEC started there. And then Zuffa ended up buying them, and then they moved to Vegas. So Tachi Palace came after them. And my first fight was outside in 100-something degree weather. I remember like going out there, I'm like, oh my God, like touching the mat. It was funny because the cage is like this, right? And I'm looking, I'm like, I'm on the opposite side. I'm like, I'm facing the sun. So like, I got to circle, try to get this guy in the sun. So he could like close his eyes, so I could hit him. But yeah, so I met him there for my very first fight. He got me, Ian McCall was on the card. I think he was fighting Darryl Montague for the title, Taji Palace title. And he gave me a pair of Metal Melissa shorts I still have to this day. And he's like, hey man, my name's Jason. I'll be managing you. And I'm like, oh man, thanks. I thought I was super happy. He gave me 2 pairs of shirts, gave me some shorts. Like, hell yeah, man, that's cool, man.
I'm in. Let's go.
Yeah. So I met him when I was 18 years old, and I haven't looked back since. Like I said, I've known him for most of my adult life, and like I said, I lived with him. I've known his family. I've known his wife. I mean, my son goes over to their house all the time. So it's definitely more family than anything else.
Yeah.
Like I said, Jason helped me out so much just in life, like showing me things you don't learn in school, like whether it's like balance, like learn how to balance your checkbook, like that stuff, like
life stuff.
Yeah, like literally, like he was like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Saving money, stuff like that. So it's said, like, he's definitely been a really good mentor for me.
Awesome. Well, Alex, you just spelt burn in your life. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Tell the
Appreciate it.
audience where they can find you at Instagram, all social media platforms.
So thank you guys for having me. First of all, man, I really appreciate it. It was super fun. Social media is Alex Perez MMA on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You guys are most welcome. Hit me up if you guys have any questions. I do pretty good at responding. So just hit me up. Anything you guys got to ask, whether it's fighting or just anything, just hit me up. I'm always there. And like I said, thank you guys for having me.
Of course, you heard Alex. Go give him some love. And as a gift for coming on the podcast, you will be getting the Black Label Edition hoodie that only guests get. So
Hey.
yes.
Thank
So
you.
rock it.
Thank you. I will, man. Thank you guys.
Wear it proud.
I will. Thank you guys.
Of course. And like always, please visit my foundation as well, the priestjamesfoundation.org. Again, the priestjamesfoundation.org to understand why this is called the Burn Factory.
We'll see you guys for the next episode. Peace.
All right, guys, you're here with Alex Perez, who just spelled burn in his life. He is now the Burn Factory podcast champion. So here you go.
He's expecting a second belt here pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly. Second belt coming soon.
But thank you so much, Alex, for coming on. You had fun? You enjoyed
man,
it?
it was fun. I actually had a good time. I don't really do too many podcasts, but I'm glad I did this one.
Awesome. No,
Awesome.
you were
Thanks for
so much
coming
fun.
on.
So thank you for coming on.
No, man,
Appreciate
thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.